All our work is important. This effort is a little bit different though. It's focused on our hitas and hitos. Numerous arms in the pot standing on progress in the roundhouse and the classroom. Welcome to New Mexico. It's time to pass the sopapillas. Join us for a conversation between New Mexicans who are doing work worth talking about.
Every interaction with that child beginning at the infant stage is the building block to their success.
Embrace the richness around the most important thing we do. Raise children, the next generation, and make that progress.
Having this universal childcare or childcare assistance really helped my parents put food on the tables.
I think New Mexico is showing the world that we can do things that other states or this country at large has said is impossible, and it's not.
With conversations hosted by me, your New Mexico State Poet Laureate Manuel González, and presented by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. This episode shows us the levels of efforts taken on behalf of our most valuable investment, our children. Learn how New Mexico is managing to lead by example when it comes to early childhood education. Are you ready? Then pass the sopapillas. Hello, and welcome to this episode of our Pass the Sopapillas podcast. Today is a very amazing and heartfelt episode because what we're going to be talking about is our hitas and hitos. We're going to be talking about the early childhood development education and the things that we're doing here in New Mexico that puts us on the cutting edge. And so today I get to talk to two amazing people that are doing work on the ground. And I'd like to give you guys just a moment to introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Manuel. So my name is Gabrielle Uballez. I'm the Executive Director of New Mexico Voices for Children. I'm working what is my second dream job because I had a dream job working with youth in the arts before, and that's how we've met in the past. But what I now have the chance to do is work on state policy. And it's the organization that looks at how we're putting children at the center of everything we do, from how we spend our state budget to what programs look like for our children in the state of New Mexico.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here. My name's Kate Noble. I'm the president and CEO of Growing Up New Mexico. We are a statewide community organization focused on early childhood. We have a bunch of different arms of business, including an early learning center, a preschool with soon to be 10 classrooms. And we do policy and advocacy at the state level. So what we really try to do at Growing Up New Mexico is connect the practice of working with families, whether it's in classrooms, home visiting, or the caregivers who are home educators doing it as a business at home, with our knowledge of sort of building a system at the state and how we advocate for the change and evolution that we need in our early childhood universe in New Mexico.
Yes, thank you for being here and thank you for doing what you do. How did New Mexico make early childhood a priority here in New Mexico for our families? Because it wasn't always that way.
It wasn't always that way. Voices was central to that, and I wasn't there at the time. It was a lot of community organizations. I know, Kate, you've been part of this work for a long time too. The story I've been told was in 2008, there were some advocates who heard about some child-centered policies that were happening related to the state budget and came back with a spark of an idea. That spark of an idea, I think, just spread. And I think there are three things that I think about when I think about how New Mexico is a leader in early childhood, is that we had the political will. So I think we have a lot of elected leaders who decided to raise their hands to come into power, who cared about children and put them at the center of the work we're doing. How we spend our public dollars matters. And so the question Voices would always get since we were founded 40 years ago was, well, how are you going to pay for it? And I think we had a lot of lawmakers and advocates thinking about how are we going to make the money freed up so that children can have access to high quality programs. And then it was people power. It was organizing. It was childcare workers standing up and saying, this matters to us, and shaping the fight alongside children and families and parents and advocates and lawmakers. And so, you know, for me and Voices part of the story, it was 2008, but I'm sure it went way before that. but it was people standing up and saying our children have to be at the center of everything we do, and that includes our tiniest children.
But I think it was kind of a magical thing that for some reason, it's like when you put certain seeds in a certain garden for a certain year where the rainfall is going to be what it's going to be, and you just get an incredible garden. Like it happens. And I do think on some level, there was just magic for years, and brick by brick there were people. Gabrielle went through, I think pretty much covered all of them. Like there were people who cared a lot in New Mexico's state government a long time ago, both in the Children, Youth and Families Department long before the Early Childhood Education and Care Department was created, as well as in the legislative side, and people saying, you know, we could do something here. But somehow some magical momentum grew with a lot of organizing, advocacy, people caring and really wanting to make a difference. And so to some extent, I don't know that any organization, any person can take even a disproportionate share of the credit, because it's like bricks in a wall. It takes every single one, and we got really fortunate with the conditions in New Mexico to get to a point of really making early childhood our thing.
Yes. Can you talk about maybe what specifically is working here in New Mexico, and maybe what still needs to be built and the things that we need to do looking forward?
And briefly, the sky's the limit, right? Can we ever do, we can always do better for kids and for families until it's not hard anymore for anyone. And you know, we can hold that out as a goal, but we've got a lot more to do. I would say a lot of it goes back to some original programming. New Mexico has an incredibly elegant pre-K act, and our pre-K is just amazing, and it's been universal, it's enrollment-based, it has high standards, it gets outcomes, and it's been incredible for a long time. And home visiting is something that the state really invested in many, many years ago, decades ago. And home visiting is hard to understand because it's so tailored to families' needs. It meets families where they are, but those investments have been really important. And what we've seen, I think, since the creation of the Early Childhood Education and Care Department, and I know Gabrielle has a valuable perspective here as well, but is really that the adding to that infant and toddler care, support for educators, and crucially, a lot of us have really been looking at the next big area of work, which is more support for the workforce. So we have these foundational rocks in the stream, if you will, but integrating the system and really providing the wraparound in between everything to knit it all together is still a long way to go.
Yes. And you spoke a little bit about why it's important to be conscious about where we spend our dollars. Can you talk a little bit about why it's important to invest in early childhood development for our kids?
It's the first and best opportunity you have to pour everything into a child is when they're tiny. And I think the thing I like to think about also in terms of like the work that's left to do is, you know, voices. We look at everything from financial stability of a family to K-12 education to early childhood education to environmentalism, because we don't raise children in a vacuum. And so one of the questions we're asking ourselves is, in this moonshot moment of universal childcare being a thing, right? We've said New Mexico believes that everyone should have access to free and universal high quality care. I think also about policies we haven't passed that will set kids up for a successful future, like paid family medical leave, so that parents have the opportunity to take time off work and bond with a baby in those first precious weeks. It's so good for brain development before they're going to enroll their kid in universal child care. So I think, you know, where we put our state budget in creating these programs is really important. And it's how do we understand that our success in early childhood education investments is only as good as the other investments we make in our families and children along the whole cradle to college to career spectrum.
I want to know your why. I want to know what inspired you to bring your work here in this way.
There's a lot of whys. In terms of the early childhood education work we do, my mom was an early childhood educator. My whole my whole life. She was a person who went to college when I was in middle school. I think she graduated the same year I graduated from 8th grade. And she was both a small business owner at one point where she had a one-room preschool, and then eventually she was a Head Start teacher. And one of the things that has become really important to me in this work that we do together is how childcare workers and the owners of childcare centers, no matter the size, how they're centered in how we're spending our budget too. When my mom owned her school, she wanted to make sure it was affordable for kids, and this was before universal childcare or even ECCD, the department, was a thing. She was paying herself $10,000 a year, and she had to close her school because, you can't make ends meet, but she wanted to pay her teacher well and make sure her families could afford it. She did have the opportunity to be part of organizers in the Land of Enchantment, Uballez kind of movement towards where we are today, and I think that has been really inspiring for me. And then my other why is just, the work that I think I've known you through, which is working with especially older kids, young people who are in middle school and high school, and thinking about how our kids should have everything they need to thrive, and education should include opportunities to play, to experiment, to collaborate. And that's the kind of not only early childhood system I want to be a part of creating, but also just a system for education and a vision for how we raise our children in New Mexico.
Yes, that's inspiring. Thank you.
Well, I come to this by a fairly non-traditional path, I'd say. I mean, I'm born and raised in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I guess I grew up wanting to make a difference and be a positive force for good. I remember being really fired up about that sort of thing in high school. Before too long led me to education and early childhood education because it's a multi-generational economic and community development exercise. And honestly, I'm pretty nerdy and have always been obsessed with but do we have the right measures, and do we have the right way of looking at things? And then there's sort of sexism and racism in the world, and truly early childhood education, even from a nerdy economic development, business development perspective, is phenomenal because it's the most heart-led industry you've ever heard of. And what Gabrielle says about her mother being that person, it has happened forever that people care for other people's children and get paid or they barter for things and work together. And thinking about supporting this.
Yes, that's what community needs.
Yes, and really strengthening the structures and the opportunity we have and what we're doing in New Mexico to make this really strong, really different. I met the then CEO of my organization, Growing Up New Mexico, actually while I was running for office in my hometown, and I was thinking a lot about the economy and education and how we really build community and where do you prioritize that catalytic thing. And honestly, it felt like this sort of light bulb moment with, angels singing and you name it. No, it's early childhood. So I'm pretty sure I'm here for maybe the rest of my life to work on this incredible area.
Oh, that inspires all of us to do that. Now, the next question I have is for both of you. It's why is early childhood development education important, not just for the children, but for everybody in New Mexico?
It's only 5 years, and moment by moment. So if we can support families and we can, support people to get through trauma, to process, to do their best, to be their best selves, to have the tools in the moments of weakness, we can break the cycles of trauma. We can have people in those first years of being parents build the muscle and learn to be better parents. As a parent of a teenager now, I'm like, oh man, if only I'd known then what I know now, all these things. So there's these deep social impacts that we can get to from early childhood, and for the next generation to really make generational progress. And There's all this stuff for New Mexico economies now, for workers, for communities, because it is an expertise. And there are some people who might be really good and able to be with their kids at home, and there are some of us who really needed other people to help with that. And so all of it is a way to sort of embrace the richness around the most important thing we do: raise children, the next generation, and make that progress.
Yes. My question for you is, what's the return on these investments? What do we see 20 years from now from what we're doing today in childhood development in New Mexico?
I mean, the return on investment is worth every single penny. We already talked about brain development. And so pouring into your kids, not just as parents, but as professionals who understand early childhood brain development, make the investment early. Kids will have the opportunity to have not just a strong foundation for things like literacy and math, but things like social emotional regulation. And those are a lot of the investments we need to make in our kids and our education system too. In terms of the economics, when you think about the hardest financial moment in a parent's life, it's usually when a child is just born. And so that taking time off work and making sure they have pay, we still have work to do there, right? We need paid family medical leave soon. But also that parents can go back to work or go back to school while the state saves them $12,000 a year and their child is in a high quality child center. That is huge for a family's economic stability. They can have money in the bank for an emergency. They can make investments down the road in their child's supplemental education. Maybe then they'll have a little money for a dance lesson or registration for soccer or a really nice winter coat. And so it's both the investment in the child's development, but it's the investment in the family's stability and future way down the road. For me, I think about that moment when I was about to have my second child. I have 3 kids. I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So I'm just coming out of those early childhood years. But when I was about to have my second child, I had to make a hard choice. I was working a job I loved at a nonprofit I loved, but I was gonna not even break even to have 2 kids in childcare at the same time. And I am just so thankful that families in New Mexico don't have to make that choice anymore. Is it cheaper for me to stay home, or do I need to change careers to make a little bit more money, but I'm contributing to my community in a really important way? Because the state has said high quality childcare is a right for every family. I think for us, we have to continue to work to make it real so that everyone has the ability to pay for it, but do we have enough slots and is our workforce supported so that families can access the kind of care that they need for their kids?
And that's the kind of thing that, like, I don't care what side of the aisle you come from, we all love our babies like that, you know? We all love our hitos and our hitas, and it makes it so that the policymakers and the people in power see that we care about our children, and that's something important to us. My last question is for both of you, and it's what's that one thing about early childhood development and education that you wish all of us knew?
I guess the one thing I wish everybody knew is how good the world can be if we get this right. I mean, we could stop putting money in prisons, and we could stop doing some of the hard and cynical things we do as a society. I believe if we invest in our large-scale humanity, because that's really what early childhood is it's investing in families surrounding that young child and those first 5 years that are so critical to get right. And we don't even know how good the upside could be if we get this really right, if we make the generational progress to do this. And ultimately, I sort of wish we could all get a glimpse of that, a glimpse of the possible future if we get this right, if we can really make the commitment to do what's right and sort of come back to our collectivism and our understanding that we have to work together as humans, as people on this planet, as society to get things right. And this is our great opportunity.
Oh, yes, that's inspiring. Thank you.
I love that. The like, what is possible if we get this right? I think what I would add to it is early childhood education is one big important piece. And I think New Mexico is showing the world that we can do things that other states or this country at large has said is impossible, and it's not. So what else is possible if we've made this possible? Today I was kind of nerding out about a budget because that's what we do at Voices. We care really about how are we going to get the money and what are we going to spend it on, right? And we spend a lot of money in this country on bombs. And I was curious. I said, what would it take to take the amount of money we've spent in 8 weeks and make universal childcare possible somewhere else in the country? And the way the numbers worked out was you could pay for a full year of universal childcare in California, that huge state, for what our country has spent on weapons in 8 short weeks. And so I think in New Mexico, what we're showing is that where we put our money matters, and we can put big money into our children and families first.
Yes. I thank you both for doing what you do and working so hard for our children, our families, and our communities here in New Mexico. It's because of you that we're so strong and that we're on the leading edge of what it means to care about our hitos and hitas like that, because that's the future. That's all we have, and we're trying to give them a better world. And thanks to you, we have that. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing with us in that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's enlightening and eye-opening to see how far we've come at a policy level in order to deliver access to education to New Mexico's youth. Next, we will hear from a couple of women who have their hands on the pulse of that process. They run their own learning centers here in New Mexico. Let's listen to some folks talk about opportunities for our youngest minds. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pasta Sopapillas podcast. I am so thankful and glad that you're with us here today. Would you mind introducing yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here today?
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Wheeler. I'm the CEO and visionary of Eastgate Kids. We're located off of Wantabo and Copper here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We serve in a district that is the richest and poorest zip code in Albuquerque. So we're near the International District as well as near Tramway.
Yes, my name is Valeria Holloway, and I own Best of the Southwest Daycare, and I'm located down in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I'm also an advocate for Save the Children Action Network. I also work with Grown Up New Mexico. You met Kate earlier.
Yes.
And I also work with PCA, which is Partnership for Community Action, as a coach with them as well.
Can you tell me of one moment where a child or a family that shows what this work matters and why it's important to care about our hitos and hitas in that way?
I actually can think of several. In our own childcare, we've actually had several children come into our childcare center, and they were children that were left at the hospital with no name. So in the state of New Mexico, you can't give them a name legally. So on our ProCare system, they're called baby boy or baby girl. And just when you said that, there was one child that has grown up in our program for 7 years, and he's visually impaired. And then one day he was walking up to the door of our childcare center, but that he could find his way throughout our facility because it's like a second home to him. That meant so much to me that we have provided care for children that didn't have parents.
Thank you for that.
Last year, I went to college and got my master's degree. Right at the end, when I was ready to graduate, I decided to take a special education class because I really wanted to make sure that I'm equipped for everything. And God tested me with that by sending me 2 little boys who were nonverbal, one in September and one in November of last year. And right now they're moving around our room, they're playing with each other, they're talking. They're not fully conversational yet, they're not having conversations yet, but they are repeating everything that we're saying. And it just takes time. When you say no words at all and you're 3 and 4 years old, And you learn to take their time to get around and to speak and to talk to all of us and talk to our kids.
Yes, thank you. Oh, that's so inspiring what you do. Now, do you have any aha moment where you saw that what this work, it really matters and why it is that it matters in that way? And a moment where you saw the light bulb come up that you realized this is why I do what I do.
So I'm originally from Virginia, and I had a little boy come to my daycare. He was about to turn 2, and his mom told me he never spoke not one word. I said, not one? Not mommy, daddy, hello, goodbye? Never, not one word. And I realized when he had his back to me that he couldn't hear me when I called his name. And I said to his parents, I said, I think your son has a hearing problem. And he did. They took him to the doctors. He had plugs put in. Then we started doing baby talk. Mama, 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 beep, 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 beep. He was so excited to make those noises and be able to hear them. And then I was always saying to my kids, I need you to be nice, be nice, be nice. And he wanted to go around going, nice, nice, be nice, be nice, nice. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out what he was trying to say. And then I closed my eyes one day and I heard him say that, and it clicked. He was trying to tell the kids to be nice. And that was his first words that he ever said in my daycare. I knew that my work mattered if I put the energy in and listen to each child, because each child is individually wrapped. And as child care providers, we really need to look at all of our children differently to make sure that we can get everything that we can get for them so that they can do the best that they can do in their classroom.
Both of you know what it's like to work with not only our families, but our hitas and hitos like on a daily basis. What does quality care look like on a day-to-day basis?
I would say nurturing caretakers, positive interactions, face-to-face interactions, people that show up to work and understand the assignment, that understand that their work matters, and that every interaction with that child beginning at the infant stage is the building block to their success. And that first 5 years is critical to their development. You're building the foundation of the house. And so just understanding that.
What kind of things are you doing to build that foundation?
So we start in our infant care, they start with sign language, and that helps with their verbal skills. It's very important that the children are learning certain nursery rhymes, because Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is going to help them know ABC. And then just numbers. Our children are just thriving with numbers. If they can sing these songs by 18 months, that will show that they can be reading by 3rd grade.
How can early childhood development change not only the lives of those children, but the lives of the families?
Their first 5 years is just so important. If they don't get it, then when they go to kindergarten, they're 5 years behind. And how it helps the parents is that the parents can see the progress of their children doing the wonderful things they're doing. They're crawling. That's one of the things that babies need to be doing at a certain age. They're starting to sit up by themselves, being able to hold a baby bottle, making those baby sounds, blah, 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 and then trying to make those sounds. And this is very important. And when the families see that their children are progressing the way that they're supposed to be progressing, then it gives the family a sense of pride that their kids are doing well.
We did a survey one time and we found out that up to 70% of our families are single parents. When we provide this quality care, it helps the parent to stay working, but a lot of times when that person didn't have, someone at home helping them, we are that help. We provide, and we're providing quality so that either that person can keep going to school or continue their career. We've also had situations where the other parent was incarcerated. So for during that period of time, we provided stability. And I'm very proud of that work, because just knowing that child had us during those times is critical.
Yes. Now, how has New Mexico's investment in the education of early childhood development, how has it changed the lives of our New Mexicans? And because it wasn't always that way, and things are changing for the better here in New Mexico. And I want to know How?
Well, I remember a time when, co-payments were a really hard thing, and getting parents to make those co-payments were difficult. And when we first came, my husband and I remember a grandmother that was taking care of 4 children, and she's like, I don't have the money for these co-payments. And my husband said, we're going to waive those co-payments. But now that the state has actually waived those co-payments for so many families, we're hearing that families can afford a car, or they can afford to go on a vacation, or they can just, it seems like they're able to breathe, and they can not have to have a second job or a side hustle. So the quality of time with their children has increased. We've even seen that with our own workers, where they can afford to now purchase a car, get in an apartment. Our own assistant director, she said, for the first time, I'm able to, go on vacation. And that's huge for some people that I know who've never been able to even afford an airplane ticket out of the state.
Yeah, that's important.
But that quality time and vacations with your family, just to even do something on the weekends, because you have the funds to do it. I also know of families that are able to purchase a home now, and that has meant a lot to me.
Some of my families couldn't put food on the table. That was the biggest thing. And right now with the universal child care, or even before that when they were doing the child care assistance, now they're able to put food on the table, which was a big thing. As a provider, I always said, make sure that the kids eat dinner before they leave, because I don't know if they're going to get dinner. So having this universal child care or child care assistance really helped my parents to put food on the table, so they didn't have to worry about feeding their kids.
How do we encourage more New Mexicans to take early childhood development as a career?
We were part of a program that got the enhanced rate. So we start all of our workers now at 19 an hour. So we are actually attracting a younger workforce, some 19-year-olds. And when they hear of these opportunities to get their education in early childcare, and that this actually is a profession, this is, you are a professional, and they are now pursuing it because we're showing them the career path. You're starting here at our center, but this leads to you being a teacher. This leads to possibly a job with the state. You have a future in early childcare. This is a good career.
I'm working with the schools and the high schools to bring them into the daycare, and they work with our infants and toddlers or whatever age group that they want to work with. One of the girls wrote me a nice little thank you that you were able to help me choose my career for the rest of my life, and made me cry.
Oh, it pulls on our heart in that way. Now, my question is, can you talk a little bit of some of the challenges that you encounter when it comes to being a proprietor for early childhood development in New Mexico?
Well, I do think, there's no fun without funds. If you have a mission but no money, it's very difficult to accomplish. So currently we are able to just accomplish so much more. And we're seeing just amazing opportunities where when we didn't have that funding, you could have ton of vision and ton of passion, and you could have all this willpower of, I want to make a difference. But now that there's funding, it's created the ability to do these things that you want. It's created us the ability to have a farming program at our childcare, and to actually bring out outside people. We have an atelierista now where the children can do ceramics and play with clay, and they can, they're doing work with wire. They're doing opportunities that were not afforded to them before. And everything that we can do to give these children opportunities to have a education that used to be only to people that could be of means or wealth, and give them these opportunities, is because we have the funding.
Yes. Can you tell me what quality childcare looks like in New Mexico on a day-to-day basis?
Just having quality teachers who wants to go back to school and get their degree and work with the kids and understand the brain and how it works. They start talking so fast and so early now that it's unbelievable, because we're doing that whole thing about talking with them when they're babies, they're babbling, and then they start using words. at such a young age.
I want to talk a little more just about what quality has meant to my facility. So with different types of funding, we've been able to put that money directly into the classrooms. We've been able to give raises to our teachers. We've been able to provide health care to our teachers, which I know is going to drive quality outcomes.
See, I always thought that early childhood education had to do with just literacy and mathematics, like they could learn their ABCs and their 1, 2, 3s. But I want you to tell me about social and emotional development and why it's important to our children.
When they're at our facility, if they are building those social emotional skills at a young age, that is a foundation for their future. That's going to help them with friendships. That's going to help them in the classroom. That's going to help them, to be able to maintain good quality relationships at their school, which helps them also when they enter into the workforce. Can they stay employed? Can they get along with others? It's I think, a factor to so many things.
Yes, social emotional. One of the things that one of my friends who is a school teacher, I was telling her about, I'm teaching this and this and this, and she said, girl, please just teach them how to have social emotional skills so when they can come into the classroom, they know how to behave themselves, they know how to play with each other, they know how to make friends, they know how to regulate themselves if they do get a tantrum or something. And I was like, really? And she's like, oh my goodness, if you guys can just get that right in early childhood education, it would make our lives so much easier in kindergarten and above.
What you do is help our children become whole human beings. And it starts when they're little. Because of people like you, we have a better New Mexico, and we have stronger families and a stronger system set up for our children. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for taking care of our families and our hitas and hitos. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your brightness and your shine with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Today, we understood the weight of the assignment and listened to those who respond resoundingly with a "we can, we will, sí se puede," porque they matter most. Those little minds finding their way into comfort, community, and exploration of education. Listen closely. Every time we try, a child learns to read. All we need to do is provide an opportunity for the words to come. Saludos. Gracias. I'm your host, Manuel González, reminding you to follow, like, and or share Past the Sopapillas wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.